My wife, Aisha, and I never asked for much. A small apartment, steady jobs, and our daughter, Illa. That was everything. She was 5. Bright eyes, endless laughter. The kind of child who made you forget the world outside. And maybe that's why we didn't see it coming. Aisha worked downtown, in an office that looked clean and modern from the outside. But inside, it was something else. She was good at what she did, better than most. And that didn't sit well with everyone. Some of her coworkers would make little comments. Her hijab made her different. To them, that was enough. They didn't say anything openly cruel, but she'd come home some nights, quiet and trembling. "They make me feel small, Hassan," she told me once. "Like I have to prove I deserve to be there." I'd tell her what I could. That kindness was strength, that our faith taught patience. She'd nod, smile faintly, and go back the next day, holding herself together with sheer will. There was one man she mentioned often, Mark. He wasn't her boss, but he lingered near her desk, made comments about her food, asked questions about her prayers. He'd stand there, just stand there, watching her type. She told HR once. They said it was a misunderstanding. Then came that Tuesday. I was in a meeting when my phone rang. Unknown number. It was her manager. His voice was shaking. "Hassan, you need to come to City General. There's been an incident." The drive was a blur. When I got there, a doctor met me in the hallway. I saw his face before he said the words. And I knew Aisha was gone. 32 years old, no health issues, no warning. They said it was a heart attack, sudden, massive. I couldn't understand how. The police came, as they do for any death at work. Her manager told them Aisha had taken a drink from Mark that morning. Some new energy drink he'd brought in. She didn't really want it, but he'd insisted. She took a few sips. Minutes later, she collapsed. They tested it. Nothing. Autopsy said heart failure, natural causes, case closed. But not for me. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, that somehow he had done something they couldn't prove. I thought about it every night, about that drink, about the way he'd watched her. But grief, it has a way of dulling even anger. It leaves you hollow. The worst part was Illa, trying to explain to her why her mother wasn't coming home. She didn't understand. She just waited by the door for days. After a while, I couldn't stand that apartment. Every room echoed with her laugh. Every object felt like a memory I wasn't ready to see. So I found us a new house. Quiet, small, with a yard for Illa to play in. It felt like a chance to breathe again. For a while it worked. We found some rhythm. We were healing, I think. Then one night, around midnight, I woke to the sound of a voice. It came from downstairs. Soft, familiar. "Hassan." It was Aisha's voice. Every muscle in my body locked. I sat up, listening, but there was only silence. I lay back down and told myself it was a dream, that my mind was playing tricks on me. But the way the air felt, heavy, cold, I couldn't shake it. A few days later, Illa started talking to herself. I'd hear her in her room, carrying full conversations. When I peeked in, she'd be sitting with her dolls, speaking softly to an empty chair. "Who are you talking to, sweetheart?" I asked once. She smiled. "My friend." I told myself it was normal. Kids make imaginary friends when they're lonely, but it didn't stop. One night, as I tucked her in, she said something that froze me. "Mommy told me to tell you she loves you." My throat tightened. "When did you talk to Mommy?" "She visits me in my dreams," Illa said, almost whispering. "She says she misses us." I couldn't respond. That night, I barely slept. And then came the final night in that house. I woke up suddenly. The air was freezing. I reached for Illa, but her side of the bed was empty. I sat up fast. Illa? Nothing. I ran to the bathroom. Empty. The hallway light was flickering faintly from the nightlight. The door to the stairs was open. Illa. Still nothing. Then I heard her. Her small voice drifting from downstairs. I hurried down, trying not to make a sound. The house was dark except for the pale glow of moonlight through the glass in the front door. And there she was, standing in the archway between the living room and the hallway. Her back to me. "But why can't you come inside?" she whispered. "Daddy's here. He's waiting for you." I froze. There was no one there, only her and the empty air in front of the door. But then I saw it. On the wooden floor, in the cold blue light, two shadows. One small, my daughter's, and another, taller. The unmistakable outline of a woman standing where no one stood. It stretched across the floor, clear and perfect. My mouth went dry. "Mommy, please come in," Illa said softly. That broke me. "Illa!" I shouted, and the second shadow vanished. Not faded, gone in an instant. She turned around, startled. I rushed to her and pulled her into my arms. "Who were you talking to? Who was here?" Her voice trembled. "It was Mommy," she said. "She was in our room." She held my hand and brought me downstairs. She said she had to go, but she wanted to see me. That night, we left the house. I didn't pack anything, just got in the car and drove until the sky began to lighten. We stayed in a hotel. The next day, I called a realtor and told him to sell the house. I never went back. Illa never spoke to her friend again. Not in dreams, not in whispers, but sometimes, when I think about it too long, I start to wonder if that really was Aisha, coming to see her daughter one last time, or something wearing her voice. And whenever my mind drifts back to that office, to the drink she was given, I feel it again. That cold, silent weight of something unfinished. I escaped the house, but I don't think I've escaped the truth. Because somewhere, beneath all that grief, something is still waiting in the shadows. It was the summer of 1998 when it happened. I was 10 years old, living with my parents in a quiet patch of Ohio. Nothing fancy, just a small town, dirt roads, and the smell of pine that never really left your clothes. Behind our house, the yard gave way to a stretch of woods that felt endless, thick, still. At night, it looked like the trees swallowed the stars. In the middle of that yard, there was my swing. My mom had built it herself a couple of years earlier. 2 oak trees grew close together, both split at the top like giant forks. She'd laid a heavy log across the split branches, tied a thick rope from the middle, and nailed an old piece of pallet wood at the bottom. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. I used to spend hours out there, pushing higher and higher, watching the treetops blur. That swing felt unbreakable. It had held through storms, through winters, hundreds of afternoons, just me and the sound of the wind in the trees. Until that day, it was brutally hot, 90 degrees, maybe more. Dad was in the garage working on the truck, Mom inside cooking dinner. I was out back, moving slowly, letting the heat wrap around me. No music, no phone, just cicadas screaming from the trees. I remember pumping my legs gently, barely moving. Then, suddenly, something yanked me, hard. It felt like a hand grabbing the back of my shirt, firm and fast, pulling me backward. My body lifted, then hit the ground. The dirt was dry and hot beneath me. For a second, I didn't even breathe. And then, I heard it. A crack, loud and sharp, like a gunshot. The log split clean down the middle. It came crashing down, smashing into the ground exactly where I'd been sitting. The seat and rope fell beside it, the dust rising in a small brown cloud. If I hadn't been pulled back, it would have hit me square across the chest. I sat there, dazed, staring at the broken wood, the spot where I'd landed. It was far, too far. There was no way I could have jumped that distance, not even if I'd tried. My shirt collar was stretched, the back of my neck stinging like something had gripped it. It wasn't imagination. I yelled for my parents. Dad ran out first, wiping grease off his hands. He knelt beside the log, inspecting the break. Said maybe it had rotted from the inside, maybe water damage. But we'd checked it before. It had been solid. Mom hugged me tight, told me I was lucky. That was the end of it, as far as they were concerned. But I knew what I felt, that deliberate pull, like someone or something had grabbed me just before it broke. We took the swing down the next day. After that, I never went near those oaks again. Time moved on. I grew up, went to college, and eventually moved back home in 2012 to save money. The house hadn't changed much. Same creaky floors, same old wallpaper. The woods had grown thicker, wilder. My old bedroom overlooked the backyard. From the window, I could still see those trees, the stumps where the swing had hung. The bark had grown over the scars, but they were still there, faint like healed wounds. It was October when the knocking started. My parents were out at a friend's dinner party, and I was home alone, watching TV. It was a little after 9, the kind of night where the air feels too still. 3 knocks, sharp, measured. From the back door. We never had visitors use that door. It opened straight into the yard. I paused the TV, listened. Silence. Maybe a branch had fallen, I thought. Or an animal. Then 3 more knocks, louder. I stood up, heart beginning to race. From the kitchen, I could see the door. The porch light cast a weak circle of yellow outside. No movement, no shadow. I opened the curtain just a little. Empty yard. Still, something fell off. I unlocked the door, just enough to open it a few inches, and called out, "Hello?" Nothing. Just the whisper of wind moving through the grass. I shut it again, locked it tight. Then I went upstairs to grab my phone. My room window looked straight down at the yard. That's when I saw him. A man, standing behind one of the oak trees, the one where the swing used to hang. He was tall, wearing dark clothes, maybe a jacket, maybe something heavier. Still, watching. My stomach dropped. He stepped forward slowly, out of the tree's shadow, and started walking toward the house. Not stumbling, deliberate steps. Quiet, controlled. He stopped near the back door, raised his hand as if to knock again. Then he looked up, straight at my window. Our eyes met. Even from that distance, I could see his face. Pale, hollow, unblinking. No anger, no smile, just this cold intensity. I ducked down, heart hammering so hard it hurt. When I looked again, he was still staring up. Then, without warning, he turned and bolted into the woods. Not toward the road, not away from the house, straight into the trees. Branches cracked, leaves rustled. Then, silence. I called 911. The police came 20 minutes later. Searched the yard, the woods, the road behind the property. Nothing. No footprints, no tire tracks, no sign anyone had been there at all. They told me it was probably a prank. A homeless man, maybe. Told me to keep the doors locked and call again if it happened. I didn't sleep that night. I sat by the window until sunrise, watching those trees. The way they swayed slightly in the early wind. The space between them, where the swing once hung, looked darker than the rest. The next day, Dad put up motion lights and a camera. We never saw him again, but the feeling stayed. Some nights, I'd wake up to a soft rustling behind the house. Could have been a raccoon, could have been the wind. But every time, I'd find myself staring out the window, half expecting to see a figure standing there again. It's been years since then. The camera never caught anything unusual. I moved out a year later, but sometimes when I drive past the old place, I look toward those oaks. They're still standing, silent, unmoving, and I remember that tug, that invisible force that pulled me from death all those years ago. I used to think it saved me. Now I'm not so sure, because the older I get, the more I wonder if it wasn't trying to save me at all. Maybe it just wasn't done with me yet. It was late December 5 years ago. Snow had fallen hard that week, the kind that swallows sound and light both. The whole neighborhood looked frozen in place. No footsteps, no tire marks, just white silence stretching out to the woods beyond the road. I'd been house-sitting for my aunt. She lived alone, far outside the city, a small blue house built in the 70s, tucked beside a frozen lake. She'd gone to visit family in another state for the holidays. Said she'd feel better if someone stayed there, kept the pipes from freezing. I agreed. At the time, I thought a few quiet nights away from everything might be good for me. The first 2 days were uneventful. I'd wake up early, make coffee, listen to the wind rattle against the window panes. By evening, I'd read or sit by the fire, the house groaning softly as it cooled. There was something peaceful about it until the third night. It was almost midnight. I was upstairs half asleep when a sound pulled me awake. A click, soft, metallic. I knew it immediately. The sound of the kitchen light switch being flipped on. At first I thought maybe it was the heater, or maybe I'd imagined it. But then a faint glow filled the hallway outside my bedroom. Yellow, artificial. The kitchen light was on. I lay there, listening. No footsteps, no creaks, just that steady hum from the old fluorescent bulb. I got up, pulled on my sweater, and crept downstairs. Every step on that wooden staircase felt louder than it should have. When I reached the kitchen doorway, I stopped. The light above the counter flickered gently, humming. The table sat in the middle of the room, chairs tucked in just as I'd left them. The back door, still locked, empty. I turned off the switch, waited a moment, and went back upstairs. But the moment I lay down again, click. The light came on. This time, I didn't move right away. I just stared at the ceiling, listening to the electric buzz bleeding faintly through the floorboards. It stayed on for maybe 30 seconds, then turned off again. No sound of the switch, no movement, just gone. I didn't sleep after that. The next morning, I checked the wiring, thinking maybe the old switch was faulty, but it worked perfectly. I told myself it was a power surge, static maybe. Still, that night, I left the light on intentionally. Figured if it wanted to be on, it could stay that way. Around 2 in the morning, I woke again. The room was freezing. My breath hung in the air. The light was off. I went downstairs, slower this time, careful not to make a sound. When I reached the bottom step, I could see my reflection faintly in the kitchen window. The outside was completely dark. And then, the light snapped on. It wasn't the switch this time. I saw it with my own eyes. The bulb just came alive, flooding the room in that same weak yellow glow. But there was something else. The chair nearest the window had been moved, turned slightly, like someone had been sitting there, watching the snow outside. I stood there for maybe a full minute, every instinct telling me not to move closer. Then I reached out, and turned the light off. The bulb hissed, dimmed, and died. In that sudden darkness, I thought I heard something faint, a sigh, or the shift of air right beside me. That was enough. I grabbed my coat and slept in the car that night. By morning, the kitchen looked normal again. The chair was back in place. The switch stayed off. I called my aunt, trying to sound calm, asked if she'd ever had issues with the wiring or the lights. She hesitated, then said quietly, "Which light?" "The one over the kitchen table," I told her. There was a long pause on the other end. Then she said, "That light always comes on by itself. Don't worry about it. Just leave it on." The line went quiet again, and she changed the subject. I didn't press her. That night, I left every light in the house off. I sat by the fire until late, the only sound the wood crackling softly. When I finally went upstairs, I made sure the kitchen was dark before locking my bedroom door. But at 3:14, I remember the exact time, something woke me. The light. It was on again. Brighter this time, spilling into the hall, cutting through the darkness like it wanted me to see. And underneath it, a shadow. It stretched across the floor, long and still, as if someone were standing just out of sight. I didn't move, didn't breathe. After a few seconds, the shadow shifted. Not fast, just slightly, like someone turning their head. Then slowly, it started to fade. Not disappear. Fade, as though it were pulling back into the light itself. When I finally found the courage to go downstairs, the light was still on, humming faintly. The chair by the window turned again. I unplugged the bulb that night, physically removed it from the socket, and yet, an hour later, the kitchen glowed. No bulb, no source, just light. That was the moment I left. I grabbed my bag, my keys, and drove through the snow until the road disappeared behind me. My aunt called the next day, said she got home safe, thanked me for watching the house. Then she laughed, soft but strained, and said, "The light's already on again." I didn't ask what she meant. I didn't want to know. A month later, I went back with her during the daytime. Sunlight poured through the windows, making the place look harmless. She told me she'd stopped trying to fix it years ago. Said it started after her husband passed, that the light would come on the night before every anniversary of his death. She said it made her feel less alone. I looked at the window, the chair, the old light fixture above the table. There was something heavy in that room. Not evil, just unfinished. The air felt thicker there, as if someone was still waiting for something. When I left that afternoon, I turned to look one last time through the glass. The light flickered once, and then came on. The chair was empty. But I could have sworn, just for a heartbeat, I saw the outline of a hand resting on the table. And I realized, maybe some lights don't need fixing. Maybe they're reminders or warnings. Either way, I still don't sit in the dark anymore. I've always loved Halloween. When I was 10, it wasn't just a holiday. It was the day I waited for all year. The smell of dry leaves, the chill in the air, the sound of kids laughing through plastic masks. It felt like magic. That year, my dad and I went all out. We covered the bushes with fake cobwebs, hung skeletons from the trees, and set up a fog machine that hissed like something alive. My two best friends, James and Curly's, were helping. James was 14, older, confident, the kind of kid who could climb trees without a ladder. Curly's was 12, quieter but always ready to help. It was late afternoon. The light had that golden, almost sleepy glow. My dad was setting up a scarecrow by the porch, hammering its stake into the ground. I was stretching cobwebs over the bushes with Curly's when I noticed someone on the sidewalk. A man. He'd stopped right in front of our house. He wasn't doing anything, not walking a dog, not carrying a bag, just standing there, hands in his jacket pockets, watching us. He looked ordinary, maybe in his late 30s. Jeans, gray jacket, short hair. The kind of man you'd forget after passing. But there was something about the way he was smiling. Wide. Too wide. It didn't look happy. It looked like someone pretending to know how to smile. He said, "Wow, you guys are doing a great job. Getting ready for the big night." I remember his voice. Calm, almost gentle. I was a friendly kid, so I smiled back. "Yeah, we're trying to be the spookiest house," I said. He nodded slowly, still staring at me. "I bet you'll get a lot of candy." His eyes moved from the porch to the trees, like he was memorizing everything. Then he asked, "You planning on going trick-or-treating around here? What's your route?" At the time, it didn't sound like much, just a question, but something about the way he said it made my stomach twist. Before I could answer, my dad came over. He put a hand on my shoulder, firm. "Can I help you?" he asked. The man's smile faltered. "Just admiring your decorations," he said. "Your boy here's a hard worker." My dad didn't respond. His hand tightened on my shoulder. "Time to go inside, son." I remember looking back as I walked toward the door. The man's smile had vanished. His face was empty now, cold, almost angry. He looked at my dad for a moment, then turned and walked down the street without another word. That night, my dad locked every window. A couple of nights later, I woke up to a sound, a deep thud from outside. It was around 2 in the morning. I sat up, heart racing. The fog machine was off, but through my window I could still see the decorations swaying in the wind. Then I saw him, the man, standing in our yard. He was by the big oak tree, half hidden in shadow. The scarecrow was lying on its side. That was the sound I'd heard. He must have knocked it over, but he didn't move to fix it. He was just standing there, looking up at the house, and I swear, he was looking directly at my window. I froze. My skin prickled, and every sound in the room vanished, just the faint rustle of leaves outside. I stepped back, heart pounding so hard it hurt. Then I ran out of the room, down the stairs, straight to the living room. My dad was still awake, watching TV. "Dad," I whispered, "that man is in our yard." He didn't even hesitate. He grabbed the flashlight and opened the front door. Cold air rushed in. I watched from behind him as he scanned the yard. Nothing, just fog and shadows. After a minute, he came back in and locked the door. "There's no one out there," he said, but his eyes told a different story. Maybe the wind knocked it down. I wanted to believe him, but I knew what I saw. The next evening was Halloween. I tried to focus on my costume, a black ninja outfit with plastic swords, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Still, when James and Curls showed up, I felt safer. We stayed close to home at first, laughing and racing from porch to porch. The streets were alive with kids, flashlights bouncing, bags rustling with candy. But as the night went on, we decided to go farther, into streets I barely recognized. The houses were darker, the air colder. We came across one house with a single pumpkin glowing on the porch. No lights on inside. We hesitated, unsure if anyone was home. That's when we heard a voice. "Hey kids." It came from across the street. There he was, the same man, standing at the edge of a driveway, holding a big bowl. "Come on over," he said, smiling that same wide, empty smile. "I've got the good stuff." I felt a jolt of fear, but Curly stepped forward. "Candy," he whispered. Before we could move, James grabbed our arms. "No," he said quietly. "Don't." He must have seen something in the man's face, something I hadn't noticed until then. The smile wasn't even trying to look friendly anymore. The man took a step forward. The bowl slipped from his hands. It was empty. Then he started walking toward us. "Faster! Run!" James shouted. We bolted. Our bags of candy hit our legs as we ran, the sound of footsteps pounding behind us. He was chasing us. I could hear him breathing, heavy, angry. Curlis darted between two houses and vanished into the dark. James was ahead of me, yelling for me to hurry. My lungs burned. My costume felt too tight. Then I felt it, a hand grabbing the back of my hood, and I heard his voice, low and furious. But before he could pull me back, another voice cut through the night. "Get away from my son." It was my dad. He came running from a side street, out of breath but yelling with everything he had. The man froze. Then he let go and backed away. His face twisted, not angry, not scared, just blank. He turned and sprinted into the dark, disappearing between houses. My dad reached me, pulled me into his arms. I could feel him shaking. A few moments later, James came running back, and Curly's peeked from behind a fence. We were all crying, all of us. On the way home, my dad didn't say much. He just held my hand tight enough that it almost hurt. Later, I found out he'd gotten worried when we hadn't come back by curfew. He called around, then got in the car to look for us. One of the neighbors had seen 3 kids in costumes heading toward that area. If not for that, I don't know what would have happened. We never saw the man again. The police drove around for days, but nothing came of it. Sometimes when October comes around and I see a scarecrow in someone's yard, I remember his smile. The kind that isn't really a smile at all. Behind the barn, I thought I heard a door slam. A heavy one, like a basement door. My throat went dry. I said, actually, my mom's waiting on me. Can I just grab one from out here?" The farmer and Jake exchanged a look. Just a second, but I caught it. It was like they were silently agreeing on something. The farmer's smile tightened. "Sure, kid. Go ahead." We picked a pumpkin from near the fence. I paid him in cash, thanked him, and got back in the truck. Jake didn't say much on the ride back. The air between us was heavy, quiet. When we reached the neighborhood, he just said, "See you at Mr. Taylor's later," and got out. That night, my friends came over. 8 of us, total. Horror movies, pizza, music, a regular Halloween. I tried to forget the weirdness at the farm. Around 8, Jake showed up. He seemed normal again, smiling, laughing, blending in. We were in the living room, mid-movie, when his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then stood up. "Be right back." He stepped outside. 5 minutes later, the doorbell rang. I thought it was another friend, so I opened it without thinking. A man pushed his way in. He was tall, wearing a black jacket and a silicone mask that looked like a human face. Realistic but wrong, like something you'd see in a crime show. The eyes were blank, the mouth frozen in a half-smile. For a second, nobody moved. Then he pulled out a gun. "Everyone, phones and wallets in the bag," he said. His voice was calm, steady. We froze. Then panic hit all at once. He threw a duffel bag onto the floor. "Now!" One by one, we dropped our stuff in. Phones, watches, jewelry. He moved through the room fast, waving the gun, collecting everything. When he passed Jake, I noticed something. Jake wasn't scared. He looked calm, too calm. He even tossed his wallet into the bag like he was following along with the rest of us. But his eyes, they weren't afraid. They were waiting. The man grabbed the bag and backed toward the door. Then he was gone. We locked the doors and called 911. The police arrived within minutes. Flashing lights, questions, chaos. My dad pulled up not long after. Everyone was shaken, trying to explain what happened. Then one of the officers checked our security camera, the one aimed at the front porch. The footage showed Jake stepping outside, looking around, and meeting someone in the shadows. The man, without the mask. They talked for almost a minute before Jake came back inside. It wasn't random. It was planned. Police arrested Jake that night. He didn't resist. At the station, he confessed. The man from the farm, the one in overalls, was his uncle. His name was Carl. He had a criminal record. They'd been running small robberies for years, using fake farms to lure people out, collect information, then target their homes later. That night at the pumpkin patch, they'd planned to get me inside the barn. Maybe grab my keys, learn about my family. When that didn't work, they tried again. The party was the real target. The police raided the farm the next morning. It wasn't even a working farm anymore, just a front. They found bags of stolen phones, wallets, watches, even a few guns. They said we were lucky. I still think about it sometimes. How easily I got in that truck. How normal Jake seemed. The scariest part of that Halloween wasn't the gun or the mask. It was realizing I never really knew the person sitting beside me. My name is Mark. I was 17 the year it happened. Halloween was supposed to be simple, just a few neighbors, some candy, a quiet night. Mr. Taylor lived 2 houses down from us. He was retired, lived alone, but every Halloween he hosted a small get-together. Just board games, snacks, a few laughs. My parents trusted him. They always said he was good people. That night, his living room smelled like old wood and caramel apples. A bowl of candy corn sat on the table, untouched. That's where I met Jake. He said he was 19, a relative of Mr. Taylor's, maybe a nephew. He seemed easygoing, wore a plain hoodie, jeans, short brown hair, the kind of guy who fit in anywhere. We started talking about video games, Call of Duty mostly. He was funny, confident, one of those people who make you feel like you've known them for years. When I was getting ready to leave, he said, "Hey, we should hang out sometime." We swapped numbers. I didn't think much of it. A couple of days later, my mom asked me to pick up a pumpkin for the porch. My dad was still at work, buried in spreadsheets like always. When I mentioned it to Jake over text, he replied almost instantly, "I know a great spot, Miller's Pumpkin Patch, out on Country Road 47. Real cheap, huge pumpkins." It was about a 20-minute drive. The sun was setting when we left. The air smelled like smoke from someone's fireplace, and fog was starting to creep across the road. Thin at first, then thicker, like it was swallowing the headlights. Jake sat in the passenger seat, calm, humming to the radio. We talked a little, school, video games, the usual. Nothing strange. But when we pulled up to the patch, something felt wrong. It wasn't the bright, family-run farm I expected. The wooden sign was faded, half the paint chipped off. No cars in the lot, no lights, just rows of pumpkins stretching into the fog. The place looked abandoned. "Where is everyone?" I asked. Jake shrugged. "Probably closing up. I'll check around back." He got out and disappeared into the mist. I sat there with the engine idling, trying to scroll on my phone, but there was no signal. The fog thickened until I couldn't see the road behind us. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Just as I was reaching for the door handle, two shapes emerged from the mist. Jake and another man. The second man looked older, maybe in his 40s. He wore overalls and a flannel shirt, hands rough and dirty. A farmer, I guessed. His face looked normal, except for the smile, wide, tight. "Hey there, kid," he said. "Jake here says you're looking for a pumpkin." His voice had that calm country tone, but it felt too careful, like every word was rehearsed. "Yeah," I said slowly. "Come on in." He gestured toward the barn behind the field. "Got the best ones inside." The barn loomed in the fog, tall and dark. Doors slightly open. Jake smiled at me. "He says the big ones are back. There." I hesitated. "Why not just grab one from out here?" The farmer laughed softly. "Those are for show. The real ones are inside." He took a step closer. I caught a faint smell. Sweat, oil, something metallic. Then he started asking questions. "You live nearby? What's your dad do for work? Got any siblings?" I didn't like the way his eyes stayed fixed on me as he asked. Jake just stood there, hands in his hoodie pocket, silent. Something was wrong. My name is Claire. I used to live in a small town called Brookhaven. Quiet, safe, the kind of place where people still left their doors unlocked at night. At least they used to. There was a story everyone knew when I was growing up. Kids whispered it on sleepovers. Parents used it to scare us into behaving. They called her the Chain Woman. They said she was an old housekeeper who died in one of the mills decades ago. That her ghost wandered the streets dragging a broken chain, looking for the man who left her to die. Of course, it was just a story. Or that's what I thought. This happened when I was 24. I had just moved back into my parents' old house after my mother passed away. The house sat near the edge of town, surrounded by thick woods and long, narrow roads that felt older than the pavement they were built on. At night, the place got so quiet you could hear your own heartbeat. The first week was fine, just the usual sounds, crickets, wind through the trees, the occasional car. Then, on the 7th night, I heard something else. It was past midnight. I was lying in bed, half asleep, when I heard it from outside. A slow, scraping sound. Metal against asphalt. Shk, shk, shk. It came and went. Soft at first, then louder. I thought maybe it was an animal dragging something through the yard, or a loose gate creaking in the wind. I told myself not to overthink it. But the next night, it came again. Same time, same sound. Shk, shk. I got up and went to the window. The street was empty. The lamppost flickered once, then went out. For a few seconds, there was only darkness and silence. Then faintly, the clink of metal. It moved slowly down the street like someone dragging a length of chain behind them. I couldn't see anything, but I could hear it. Each scrape echoed against the pavement. I stood there for nearly a minute, frozen. Then it faded away into the woods. The next morning, I checked the road. Nothing. No tracks. No broken metal. Just wet leaves and dirt. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't want to sound crazy. A few nights later, it happened again. I tried recording it on my phone this time, but when I played the clip back, there was nothing. Just silence. The sound didn't come from inside the house. It was always outside, always moving. Then one night, it stopped right in front of my door. The scraping slowed, then stopped completely. I waited, holding my breath. My skin prickled. Something heavy shifted outside, just beyond the porch. Then came a faint knock. Not on the door, on the wall. 3 slow, hollow knocks. I didn't move, didn't even breathe. After a minute, it was gone. That night, I barely slept. The next day, I called my neighbor, Mrs. Gibbons. She'd lived on the street her whole life, in her 80s, sharp as ever. I asked if she'd heard anything strange lately. She went quiet for a moment. Then she said softly, "Oh, honey, you've heard her, haven't you?" I didn't answer. She nodded. "The chain woman. People say she walks this road every few years. Always the same time of year." I almost laughed, but her face stayed serious. She said the legend started in the 1950s. A woman named Eleanor worked at the textile mill, the one that burned down on the edge of town. The night it caught fire, she was still inside, chained to a storage door by her supervisor as punishment for stealing supplies. He left her there. She never made it out. For weeks after, people claimed they heard dragging chains outside their homes. Always at night, always in October. I told myself it was a coincidence. Just a story the town passed down too many times. That night, I turned on every light in the house. I closed the curtains. I kept the TV on for noise. Midnight came. At first, nothing. Just rain against the windows. Then, faintly, shk, shk, shk. It was closer this time, moving slowly past the house. I turned the volume down. My heart thudded in my chest. Shk, shk. Then a voice, low, ragged, almost a whisper. "Help me." It came from outside, right near the window. I froze. The air turned cold, heavy, like the pressure before a storm. I could see my breath fog in the room. The sound of metal moved again, this time scraping against the porch steps, one by one. Then it stopped. Silence. I couldn't see through the curtains, but I could feel her there, like the air itself had a presence. Then, another whisper. "Why did you leave me?" I didn't move. My hands shook so badly, I almost dropped my phone. Then the power cut out. The lights, the TV, everything, gone. Only the sound of rain, and that chain, dragging, across the porch. I stayed in the corner of the room until dawn. When the sun finally rose, I went outside. There were no footprints, but on the front step, etched into the wood, were 3 deep scratches, parallel or clean, like something sharp had been dragged there. After that night, the sound stopped. For a while. Then, last week, my neighbor called me. She said she heard something in the road again, a slow metallic scrape, and a woman's voice. She asked if I'd heard it too. I told her no, but I lied, because 2 nights before that, I woke up at exactly 12:17 a.m. The air felt colder than usual, the kind of cold that seeps into your bones. Then I heard it again, faint, distant, but real. Shk, shk, shk. This time, it was coming from the woods behind my house. And when I looked out through the trees, I swear I saw something move. Pale, almost silver, slipping between the branches. I moved out a week later. The new family that bought the house doesn't know about the story. But I do. Sometimes when I visit my mother's grave, I still hear it in the distance, that slow, steady rhythm of metal on earth. And every time it happens, I think about what she said. That question whispered through the dark. Why did you leave me? I don't have an answer, and I don't think anyone ever will. It was the summer of 2012 when my wife Angelina and I decided we needed to step away from everything. We were both in our early 30s then, tired, worn down. She was a teacher, patient and gentle, but the school year had taken a toll on her. I worked in sales, long days, too many calls, too many voices. We'd started feeling like we were living the same day over and over. So we rented a cabin up near Lake George, a small wooden place among the trees. Nothing dramatic, just 1 bedroom, a kitchen, a living room, and a bathroom barely big enough to move in. No television, no internet, no noise except the wind through the pines. It sounded like exactly what we needed. The cabin sat at the end of a long dirt road. Pines enclosed everything, tall and dark, and the air smelled like sap and lake water. About 100 yards away, hidden behind brush, there was another cabin. That one looked abandoned. Gray old wood, windows dull with dust, a place time forgot. We didn't think much of it, just another relic out there in the quiet. On our second day, I was splitting some wood outside when I saw someone step out from that old cabin. A man, gray hair, scruffy beard, a worn flannel shirt, and faded jeans. He looked like he belonged to the woods. He raised a hand, and I waved back. I walked over. His name was Jonathan. His voice was soft, polite. He said he lived there year-round. Said he was fixing the place up. I glanced behind him at the sagging porch and peeling paint, but didn't question anything. It wasn't my business. When Angelina came out, he spoke kindly to her, too. He told us about fishing spots, hiking trails, where to look for wild blueberries. There was nothing strange about him. Just a quiet man living alone. And that became routine. Every afternoon around 4, we'd cross paths. Sometimes on our porch. Sometimes I'd see him wandering by. We talked about simple things. We talked about weather, about cars, about how different the woods were from the city. Nothing felt out of place. Angelina thought he was lonely, maybe a little odd, but harmless. She even baked cookies one day and brought him a plate. He thanked her without much expression, but there was something gentle about the way he held the plate in both hands. For 5 days, everything was calm. We woke early, cooked breakfast, walked along the shore, read in the afternoons, listened to crickets at night. It felt like the world had slowed to a pace we could understand again. On the 6th day, I went for a longer hike. Angelina stayed behind, saying she felt tired. I left around noon, walked through the woods, climbed up to a ridge where you could see the lake stretching blue and still below. The hike took longer than I planned. By the time I returned, it was close to 3:30. The front door of the cabin was wide open. It moved slightly in the breeze, just enough to make a soft creak. Something in my chest tightened. I called for Angelina, but there was no answer. Inside, the place was torn apart. Drawers pulled open, chairs overturned, our things scattered across the floor like someone had searched through everything without care. My stomach dropped. I kept calling her name, moving from room to room, but she wasn't there. No cell signal, no way to call for help. My mind jumped to the only person nearby, Jonathan. I ran to his cabin. The door was shut, windows dark. I knocked hard, called his name, no answer. I tried the knob, locked. Through the dusty glass, all I could see was dim shapes. Old cans, a chair, shadowed emptiness. The woods felt too quiet then. I hurried back, and when I stepped inside our cabin again, I heard something from the bedroom. A soft sound. The door opened a crack and Angelina looked out. Her face was white. She ran to me and held on like she was afraid I would disappear. She told me what happened, her voice shaking. She'd been asleep on the bed when she woke to the sound of the front door splintering open. She got up, went to the hall, and saw Jonathan standing in the living room. He had one of our kitchen knives in his hand, not held like a tool, held like a purpose. He didn't speak. He just stood there, looking around slowly, as though searching for something he expected to find. She slammed the bedroom door and locked it. She hid under the bed, holding a lamp as if that could protect her. She said he knocked on the door, soft at first, then harder, calling her name in that same calm voice he always used. Then silence. She stayed hidden until I returned. I called the police. It took them an hour to reach us. They searched Jonathan's cabin. This time, the door was unlocked. Inside, it looked abandoned. Dust thick on the counters, rusted cans, a mattress on the floor, clothing folded neatly beside it. Someone had been living there, but not well, not recently, and not comfortably. They called the property owner to confirm. When he arrived, he told us the truth. That cabin had belonged to a man named Jonathan Ellis. He'd lived there alone until his wife died. After that, in 2007, he disappeared. No note, no sign of travel, just vanished from town. The cabin had sat empty for 5 years. No one was supposed to be there. But the man I spoke with, the man we shared cookies with, the man who walked up at 4 p.m. every day, he matched the missing man's description exactly. The police searched the woods with dogs. They found nothing. No trail, no footprints leading away. It was as if the trees swallowed him. We left that night and didn't look back. Even now, I think about him. The way he listened. The way he stood in our living room holding that knife, as if it was simply part of him. I replay our conversations, trying to hear something I missed. Some warning. Sometimes I wonder if he had been waiting, watching, choosing the moment. Other times, I wonder if he ever existed at all, or if he was already gone long before we arrived. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I waited until dawn finally bled into the sky. The next morning, there were hoof prints in the dirt below my window, but they weren't right. Hooves, but too long, too thin, almost like the legs of something walking on the tips of its toes. I asked my grandfather again what was in the barn. This time, he answered. He told me that before he bought the farm, a man lived there alone. A strange man, one who walked the woods at night and talked to things no one could see. People avoided him, called him cursed, said he invited something into that barn, something that was not meant to stay in this world. One winter, the man disappeared. No one went looking. My grandfather took over the property in spring, and when he opened the barn, he found deep claw marks in the walls, from the inside. He never told me what else he found, just that he sealed the barn and never opened it again. That night was my last night on the farm. I tried to sleep, I really did, but sometime after midnight, I heard breathing again, not below the window this time, right outside my bedroom door. Slow, wet, hungry. Then, a voice. Not my grandfather's. Not anyone alive. Low, whispering, and coming from just the other side of the wood. Let me in. The doorknob moved. I nearly screamed. But something, some instinct older than fear, told me not to. I stayed silent. The voice whispered again. Closer this time. I remember you. The floorboards creaked. The breathing stopped, and after a long, silent minute, the footsteps walked away. I didn't sleep at all after that. In the morning, my grandparents drove me home. No one mentioned what happened. A month later, lightning struck that barn during a storm, burned it to the ground. Everyone in town said it was an accident. But sometimes, when everything is quiet, and the night feels too still, I swear I can still hear that voice, right behind the wood, whispering my name. My grandparents used to own a small farm outside a quiet Appalachian town. Not the kind you see in movies with rolling hills and red barns and happy cattle. No, this farm was old, weathered, the kind of place where the wood groans at night. And something always seems to be listening. I was 15 when they first let me stay there alone for a week. My parents had to travel for work, and I didn't mind. I liked the quiet, the isolation, the smell of fresh earth when the morning fog still clung to the grass. But there was one rule my grandfather made absolutely clear. He didn't yell. He didn't repeat himself. He just put a hand on my shoulder and looked me right in the eye. "Do not go into the barn at night. Ever." I thought he was being dramatic. Old people loved stories, loved warnings. Maybe there were coyotes, or the floorboards were rotting. Either way, I nodded and promised. For the first 3 nights, nothing strange happened. I read books, helped with chores, fed the chickens. The only odd thing was the barn itself. Big, tall, and sunken, like it had been standing for 100 years longer than everything else. The windows were blacked out with boards. There was a heavy padlock on the front door, and underneath it always was a smell. Not rot, not decay, but something animal, something wet and warm and wrong. On the 4th night, I woke up to the sound of knocking, slow, rhythmic. Tuk, tuk, tuk. At first, I thought it was the wind or a loose shutter, but then it came again, louder. Tuk, tuk, tuk. It was coming from the direction of the barn. I remembered my grandfather's warning, and I tried to ignore it. I told myself I was imagining things. That silence was playing tricks on me. But the knocking didn't stop. It got faster, and then paused. And then I heard something else. A voice. Not loud. Not yelling. Just a man's voice, speaking low and calm. Like someone standing just on the other side of a wall. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was unmistakable. It sounded like conversation. Like someone was talking with something, or someone inside the barn. I pressed my ear to my window and the barn door rattled. Whatever was inside wanted out. The next morning at breakfast, I told my grandfather what I heard. He stopped eating. He didn't look angry, just tired in a way I'd never seen. He glanced at my grandmother and she stared down at her coffee like it was something deep enough to fall into. Then he quietly said, "You heard him. That means he knows you're here. That's it. Nothing else." I asked who he was, but my grandfather wouldn't say more. He just told me to sleep with the bedroom door locked. For the rest of the day, I couldn't focus on anything. I avoided looking at the barn, but somehow, it felt like the barn was looking at me. That night, the knocking didn't come. Instead, there was scraping, long, slow, dragging sounds, like nails drawing across wood, followed by a deep breath. Not human, too heavy, too wet. I froze in bed. The sound didn't come from outside. It came from just under my window. Something was standing there. A few years ago, I worked late shifts at a warehouse 2 towns over from where I lived. The drive home took about 40 minutes, through long stretches of tree-lined highway. No streetlights, no houses, just asphalt, forest, and the occasional deer that would freeze up in your headlights. I got used to the loneliness of it. There's a kind of peace in being the only car on the road at 2 a.m. Nothing but the sound of tires and the soft hum of the engine. But there's also space there. Space for things to watch you. It was early fall when it happened. The trees had just started turning red. The nights were getting colder, and I remember it was a Wednesday because I had just finished a double shift and my whole body felt like lead. About 15 miles from town, the fog rolled in, not soft mist. This was thick, heavy, living fog, the kind where your headlights feel useless, where you can only see maybe 10 feet ahead. I slowed down. The world got very quiet. Even my radio signal faded into static. Then I saw her. At first, just a pale shape in the road. Human-shaped, but not quite right. I hit the brakes, hard. The tires screeched, the car swerved, and the figure came into view. It was a woman, standing dead still in the middle of the lane. She wasn't dressed for the cold, just a thin white nightgown, soaked through like she'd walked miles in the rain. Her hair hung down in tangled ropes hiding her face. I rolled down my window a few inches. "Ma'am, are you hurt? Do you need help?" No answer. She didn't even react to my voice. She just stood there, shoulders slightly hunched, breathing slow and deep. Something about her felt wrong. Not scary at first, just wrong. Like she wasn't supposed to be there. Like seeing a fish lying perfectly still on a staircase. I tried again, louder. "Ma'am, do you need—" She turned her head. Not her whole body, just her head. Too slow, too far. Her face was pale. Her eyes were open so wide I could see the whites even in the dark. But she wasn't looking at me. She was looking past me, like something was standing right behind my seat. My hand went cold around the steering wheel. Something deep in my stomach screamed, "Do not get out of this car." So I didn't. I just eased the car forward, carefully driving around her. My headlights dragged across her figure as I passed. And she smiled. Not like she was happy. Not like she recognized me. It was the kind of smile people make when their mind is somewhere else entirely. A slow, stretching, unnatural curve that went too wide across her face. As soon as I cleared her, I accelerated. I didn't look in the rearview mirror. I didn't want to know if she turned to watch me. For a few minutes, the fog seemed to lift. The road looked normal again. But then the radio crackled back to life. Except it wasn't music. It was a woman's voice. Soft, whispering, like she was sitting in the passenger seat. I couldn't make out the words, just the tone, sad, begging, lonely. I shut the radio off, but the whispering didn't stop. It was inside the car, like it was right next to my ear. My eyes flicked to the passenger seat, empty. But the whispering was clearer now, right behind me, right where the woman had been staring earlier. I didn't look, I didn't breathe, I just drove. The whispering grew more desperate, more pleading. Then it wasn't whispering anymore. It was breathing, slow, wet, right behind my neck, like someone leaning in, inches from my skin. I floored the gas. The car shot forward. The engine whined. The breath got louder, closer. My vision blurred with tears, but I didn't stop. When I finally burst out of the fog, everything snapped back into place. The road was clear. The radio worked. The car was silent. And the breath was gone. I didn't go straight home. I drove to the nearest gas station, one of those 24-hour spots with buzzing fluorescent lights and worn tile floors. I sat there in the parking lot for almost 20 minutes, shaking. When I finally got the nerve to check the back seat, there was nothing there, just the imprint of something damp on the upholstery. Like someone had been sitting there, leaning forward, watching. I thought maybe I had imagined it. Maybe I was just overtired. But when I went inside the gas station to buy a drink, the cashier looked up at me and froze. "You all right?" he asked. I nodded. "Yeah. Why?" He swallowed, hard. You got something on your neck." I reached up and touched the back of my neck. My fingers came away wet, not sweat, not rain. The back of my neck was covered in mud. Thin, wet streaks of it. Like someone had touched me. Like someone had been leaning against me. Like someone had been breathing there. I never drove that road again at night, but sometimes, when I'm drifting off to sleep, and the room is dark and quiet, I swear I can hear breathing, slow, wet, right behind my ear, like she's still waiting in the fog, and she knows I saw her. I was 15 when it happened. My sister Amy was 17. It's strange how some memories fade with time, but others stay sharp, like someone etched them into your mind. We were on a cross-country trip with our mom and grandparents. The goal was simple: move my grandparents closer to other relatives. We had been driving for days, long stretches of highway, flat land, miles of nothing, the kind of travel that makes the world feel empty. By late afternoon of the third day, everyone was exhausted. We pulled off into a town that looked forgotten. Old storefronts, quiet streets, no movement. The kind of place where time seemed to have stopped. The motel was called the Starlight Inn. 2 stories, L-shaped, beige paint faded from years of sun. It had the stale smell of cigarette smoke and cleaning chemicals. Not dirty, just worn, tired. My grandparents were given a room on the first floor. Our room was upstairs, all the way at the end of the hallway. The carpet felt thin beneath our shoes. The light overhead flickered once as we walked in. Mom sat down quickly. Done with the day. The ice bucket was empty. She asked Amy and me to go fill it. Amy picked up the bucket. "Come on," she said quietly. We stepped back into the hallway. The air felt still, heavy. The long corridor stretched ahead, lined with identical doors and that dim yellow lighting that makes everything look a little sick. As we neared the stairwell, a man stepped out of a room just a few doors from ours. He looked like he hadn't slept. Late 30s, dark hair that clung to his forehead, oily and uncombed. A gray t-shirt that fit too tightly. He held a key, but he wasn't trying to open his door. He just stood there. His eyes didn't track like most people's. No curiosity, no expression. They were flat, like looking into a pond with no depth. We walked past him without saying anything. The door to the stairwell closed behind us, echoing in that hollow concrete space. Then I heard it open again. I turned and saw him entering the stairwell, his gaze fixed on us through the small wired window. He hadn't gone into his room. He had been waiting. A cold sensation crept down my spine. "Amy." "I know," she whispered. We started walking faster. Our footsteps echoed down the concrete steps. When we reached the first floor, the hallway looked exactly like the one above. Quiet, empty. The ice machine was at the far end. We walked. The sound of footsteps followed. Steady, not rushed, just matching us. When we reached the alcove, the ice machine roared to life as Amy pressed the button. The noise was overwhelming. For a brief moment, it drowned out everything else. My heartbeat, my breathing, my thoughts. Then it stopped. Silence returned. The kind of silence that feels wrong. Amy looked down the hallway. Her body stiffened. She didn't speak at first. Then she whispered, "Go." He was standing at the far end, watching us, not hiding, just staring, like he had all the time in the world. We moved, not running yet, but fast. The other stairwell was close. We reached it and pushed through the door. The door slammed shut behind us, echoing. We ran. I didn't hear him behind us, but I could feel him. A presence, a pressure. We burst back into the hallway upstairs and sprinted to our room. Amy's hand shook as she worked the keycard. The light blinked, once, twice. Then the lock clicked. We pushed inside, slammed the door, and locked every latch. Then we stood there, listening. Nothing. No footsteps, no breathing, just silence. When we told our mom, she tried to rationalize it. Maybe he was just heading downstairs. Maybe we startled him, but she didn't sound convinced. And my grandmother brushed it off entirely. We tried to sleep. Hours later, I woke to a sound, a thud against the door. Not a knock, A heavy, slow, deliberate impact. Like someone using their shoulder. Again and again. The room was dark. Amy was awake. My mom was sitting up, her hand over her mouth. No voice came with the pounding, just force. My mom grabbed the motel phone. No answer at the front desk. She dialed 911, whispering urgently. The pounding stopped. The silence afterward was suffocating. Minutes crawled by. Then, but only then, firm knocks came. Police, are you okay in there? My mom checked the peephole and opened the door only after seeing 2 officers. The hallway behind them was empty. We told them everything. One officer went to check the building. The other stayed with us. When the first officer returned, he spoke quietly. He's gone. We didn't find him. My mother insisted he had been there. The officer nodded slowly. We'll check the security footage. They left. We waited. The room felt darker than before. 20 minutes later, one of the officers returned. His expression told us everything before he spoke. You weren't imagining it, he said. We saw him on the cameras. He followed you. He waited outside your door for a long time. Then he started hitting it. A chill settled deep inside me. Did you catch him? My mom asked. No, the officer said. He left through the emergency exit. Parking lot cameras don't cover that side. He paused. Keep your door locked. We'll have a patrol car circle through the night. We didn't sleep again. We sat together until dawn. At first light, we packed and left. We never heard anything more. No name, no arrest, no explanation. But sometimes, when I stay in hotels, I still feel it. That sense of being watched, followed, studied. By someone who doesn't need a reason. Just interest. Just time. Just opportunity.